Mark?
You mentioned Guzzle. In issue 3 he had a really interesting character moment with Cup, but I think he ended up being a bit sidelined in comparison to the other characters. I think that's something when you introduce a lot of new characters, someone's going to get shut to the side of it. Was there ever a moment where you guys were going to look into the Cup Guzzle relationship? I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. There was, yeah. How much can we say as well?
I think that's enough, really. I mean,
Yeah.
we wanted to keep that plane spinning, and we knew, when issue 5 was first drafted, there was just too much happening in it. It was going to be revisited again, and it may yet. So
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously where, if there's one story I could go back to, it would be Cup's story, and kind of, there's so much going on with him. I mean, he did some awful things on the planet, but he didn't know he was doing them. You know, he's going to have to atone for that at some stage, in some form. If it'd be linked to Guzzle that, you know, he did all these things and say Guzzle had pals there, is Guzzle... maybe Guzzle is impressed by Cup now, maybe Cup's won him over, maybe Guzzle has other things in mind for it, but there's definitely a resolution in one of the earlier drafts, the records of the Cup story. And there's going to be a lot more time where you see Cup and Guzzle together and see how they interact, and you kind of see them almost becoming friends, and then something would happen. So yeah.
to be told, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. And you know, if it doesn't happen in the next kind of year or so, and it looks like it's never going to happen, I'll quite happily spill the beans on Auto Assembly. I'll do a storytelling session and let you know all the pitches that never got greenlit. But yeah. See you there.
Hello, boys. Just wondering, there's the Aquitus supercomputer, which sort of is the big MacGuffin that they're going for at the Martin story. I just wondered where that came from originally.
It came from. Okay, well, in Australia, there's a lot of work. There is a lot of it's very academic, but there's work going on trying to devise sort of a computer software for use in the Australian justice system. And it's to do with branched decisions, and it's sort of to try and it's trying to make essentially a computer that makes discretionary decisions to deal with low-level crime. And of course, it's entirely theoretical, but that was the germ of the idea. And again, the Aquitus thing was something else which, if we had more pages, we would have explored a bit more. Because I know that some people read it as this computer can detect whether somebody feels guilty, and that's not what it does. Obviously it's absurd sci-fi, and hopefully in a good sense, but it's mathematical and pure and logical, and it takes all the known data, and I know it's a conceit, but it takes all the known data and then it arrives at the irrefutably correct decision. And that seemed to resonate with this sort of the transformer world where you'd have a society of machines, and they would put their faith in a machine to make those decisions. Perhaps, maybe not. Maybe Aquitus was an experiment that failed, and they won't do that again. Or maybe it's a precursor to some other sort of form of extreme justice or something. But that's where the idea came from.
We're very chuffed to be able to get like a proper science fiction idea into Transformers, and I mean there should be more of it. It should be, not heavy sci-fi, but magic baubles like the Matrix kind of shouldn't always be the order of the day either. So I really enjoyed the fact that it's a very kind of Transformery conceit, that we were able to sort of get under the radar.
And it is a MacGuffin, it does. Yes, because it's something that they're pushable, but we tried to make it so that it was weaved into the main storyline itself, and really the thrust of the story really is it's about Prowl and Prowl sanctioning the mission and what Prowl wanted from that mission. And I'm going to say the 4 lines bit now, because in the trade paperback we had a commentary written which was, there wasn't enough pages to accommodate it, so it's not there anymore. But in the commentary we said that of the 5 issues, in some respects, the most important detail in those 5 issues, or details, are the 4 lines, the 4 motion lines, or the pressure lines, on the last page of the last issue, when Prowl is maybe applying pressure to that data slug, and where does that go from there? Well, we leave it up to you, but...
What happens straight after that panel is still up in the air, we don't know, so yeah.
But those 4 lines, just to indicate that yes, for that moment at least, pressure is being applied. And what does that say about Prowl's motives for sanctioning that mission? What does it say about the losses that the Wreckers have suffered in carrying out that mission? You've got Sprunger on life support, Fort Max on life support. Arguably neither will survive. Who knows? You've got obviously the records themselves are pretty much decimated. If that data slug is destroyed, what does that do to those sacrifices? What does it do to the mission? And what does it say about Prowl? So yeah, those 4 lines from one storytelling perspective are the most important detail in the series.
Morning. Is there any chance of comic adaptations of the Ladybird books?
We can't really say at the moment, Nigel. You may have blown our cover, but
there may well be a movie version of the Ladybird books.
yeah, that's what we're trying to get off the ground next.
We like to do we like to retell Last Stand of the Records in the Ladybird style.
Letters at idwpublishing.com. Yeah, it would be cool. It was cool that we were able to get Ladybird book references into the most gory, violent Transformers comic out there. So yeah.
With references like that and the in-jokes in the series itself, the rule of in some quarters we were accused of being indulgent, and yet there's a bit of indulgence there. But the rule was always, if people didn't get that reference or they didn't get that in-joke, it shouldn't detract from the story at all. So, as you said, someone could come into the series completely fresh, should read it and they'll miss it, and that's fine, and it's not going to impair their reading of the story at all. But for those of us that do get off on that, then it was like a little treat. And it isn't something we do,
I was about to say, I think we've got it out of our system now as well. I think that it was the right story to do a lot of stuff in, because Last Stand of the Records was in a lot of ways like a love letter to like Marvel UK and probably Simon Furman in particular. It's the stuff that kind of got us into Transformers, and it's got obviously records originated in Marvel UK in the Target 2006 story. So it was really cool to kind of like nod towards that general direction. But I think we've got it out of our system now. I think I really hope we get to do something together soon or apart. But it'll be all new. It'll be all new jumping on points. Yeah.
Alright. How important do you think it is to have human involvement in Transformers stories?
I kind of think it is a little bit. Well, right. You definitely don't need to have a good Transformers story, but I really wanted to sell some comics. I think that Transformers comics should sell more than they do. I think that there's nothing more ridiculous about giant robots from Cybertron than there is from a man with superpowers from Krypton sent here to save us. There's that, and mutants and Thor. This. It's all silly, but it's also all can have a depth and a kind of a grounding. And I think Transformers is a brilliant concept, and it's some of the best characters in fiction, I think, when written well. But the comic book public at large, maybe are slightly put off by all the robots and all the boxes and all the kind of the tech fetishism that maybe goes on. And so that's why I wanted to include Verity. Partially always because, a lot of the readers of Transformers are kind of 30-year-old men. So it's okay to have an attractive young lady in a comic, okay? But also it really helps the sense of scale though as well. And Verity's a character first, obviously, but especially in issue 2, I think, where you see the Wreckers assembled for the first time around the holographic simulation of Garrus 9, and you see just how small Verity is. But yeah, she's still equal. She's still bantering with Cup and interacting, and I think that's really cool. Because otherwise, you really lose the idea that these are giant robots. So it's not essential for every story, but I think maybe if you're hoping to snare the casual fan, yeah, you might need 1 or 2 well-written humans in there. So yeah.
And also from a storytelling perspective as well, it's a different viewpoint, isn't it? Really, it's it can get quite insular if it's just robots, and it gets very intense and inward-looking. But if you've got an outside perspective, a human perspective on what's going on around them, and hopefully there was a couple of moments where we did have that with Verity, and I know that there was. As we saw the responses to the issues as they came out, there was a lot of healthy scepticism as to whether Verity needed to be there. And we were conscious ourselves that there had to be a payoff, and she couldn't just be sort of human window dressing.
She does earn her place by the very end of the story at least, and I think that was a great way to end the story, by having Verity as
saving Impactor's life, essentially.
Yeah, essentially, and being the last, the person to get the last word, it's cool. especially as we don't know, obviously, if Verity's going to come back. And she had the first lines of dialogue in IDW's Transformers, you know. So she was our entry character at the very beginning. It's you know, if this is her send-off, and I hope it isn't, I've got ideas for it. If this is her send-off, then hopefully it was a good one, you know. But I'd love to see her kind of be reunited with Jimmy and kind of, you know. But originally as well, in another draft, the Verity went to a darker place and had to be talked out of it by Pyro, and it was going to be a sort of a sign that Pyro did have some prime-like qualities and that freedom is the right, etc., etc., by talking Verity out of this act that she was going to commit that would have, you know, sent her down a really dark path. And I kind of like that a giant robot teaching a human to be human, but you couldn't, if there wasn't a human in the story, you couldn't have had that either, you know. So, you know, she's going to be well used one way or another. Yeah,
yeah, there's a lot of the morality of the series shifted or was reoriented a number of times. And you know, the Pyro-Verity relationship was one. And originally Pyro was not going to. He was going to be a pretty straightforward prime emulator, and he wasn't going to be that sort of, you know, that conflicted character.
Yeah, slightly self-centered, glory hound. Yeah.
And not just morality, but also the deaths as well. We always knew who was going to die, but the order was different, and the manner in which they died was going to be different as well. Rotorstorm wasn't going to be killed in so cold-blooded a way originally. He was going to meet Pyro's end effectively, in that he was going to be torn apart. Neither a nice way to go.
Rotorstorm died three different ways in various stories. He was going to die by. There was going to be like an aerial battle outside Garrus 9 at one stage with Rotorstorm, kind of like pierced on the end of Overlord's nose cone and stuff, while Overlord is just strafing him with like firepower, you know, and that was going to be. So I mean, Overlord was always going to be one of the first to die as well, I think. So yeah.
Actually, it was another sort of constructive instance of sort of editorial, an editorial suggestion really that we needed to show how evil Overlord was, or how cold-blooded he was, and sort of the manner in which he executed Rotorstorm. Sort of, I think, established that well. You know.
And also, Overlord going first, or Rotorstorm going first, and in the manner that he went, is no indication of our feelings towards the character. I mean, we really like Rotorstorm, you know. It's kind of, but someone had to be first, you know. So he was the first of the gang.